Today we're going to dive into a courtroom drama from the past, a case that's become a cornerstone of Indian criminal law. See, this isn't just a story about a crime, it's about a much bigger question. How do you prove someone is guilty when nobody actually saw what happened? We're talking about the landmark case of Sharad Birdhichand Sarda versus the state of Maharashtra.
So, let's set the scene. It's 1982 in the city of Pune. A young woman, Manjushri, everyone called her Manju, is a newlywed. But her new life is cut tragically short when she's found dead in her marital home.
The medical reports come back, and they're chilling. Manju died from potassium cyanide poisoning. This was no accident, no natural cause. The poison had to have been administered. But that discovery opened up a huge question that would echo through the courts for years.
Was it her husband, Sharad, who murdered her? Or, in a moment of deep despair, did Manju take her own life? That's the central mystery right there. A cold-blooded murder or a heartbreaking suicide.
Okay, so with the cause of death confirmed as poisoning, the investigation naturally zeroed in on the person closest to Manju.
All eyes immediately turn to her husband, Sharad Sarda. He's arrested, charged with her murder. And the prosecution? Well, they feel like they've got their man. But they're facing this massive legal hurdle, one that could bring their entire case crumbling down.
And what was that problem? Nobody saw what happened that night. Not a single eyewitness. The prosecution's whole case was circumstantial, just a collection of clues, motives, and opportunities that they had to stitch together like a really complicated puzzle.
And this is where things get really fascinating from a legal perspective. How do you prove someone is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt when all you have are circumstances, not direct proof? The Supreme Court had to step in and lay down the law, literally.
So, what even is circumstantial evidence? Well, think of it this way. It's not the smoking gun itself. It's all the little pieces around it. The motive, the opportunity, the strange behavior. Each piece by itself might not mean much, but the prosecution hopes that when you put them all together, they paint a very clear picture of guilt.
But here's the thing. When someone's life and freedom are on the line, can you really convict them based on puzzle pieces? I mean, there has to be a super strict standard, right? And that's exactly what the Supreme Court decided to establish.
The judgment from the Sharad Sarda case gave us what's now famously known as the Panchsheel. Yep, the 5 golden principles for any conviction that's based on circumstantial evidence. Now, if you're a law student or you're prepping for the Advocate on Record exam, listen up, because these 5 rules are absolutely foundational.
Let's break these down real quick. First, the circumstances you're using as evidence have to be totally 100% proven, no assumptions. Second, all those proven facts must point to one thing and one thing only, that the accused is guilty. Third, when you look at all the circumstances together, they have to be conclusive. Fourth, and this is a really high bar, they have to rule out every other possible explanation. And finally, fifth, the chain of evidence has to be absolutely complete, with no missing links, no gaps where innocence could sneak in.
So, the bottom line is this. The chain of evidence can't just suggest that the person is guilty. It has to be so strong, so airtight, that it leaves zero room for any other conclusion. The puzzle has to form a single, undeniable picture pointing to just one person. Okay, so with that legal framework in mind, let's turn to some of the most powerful, most personal pieces of evidence in the whole case. Letters that Manju herself wrote just before she died. Could her own words solve this mystery?
Now you might be wondering, how can letters from someone who has passed away even be used in court? Well, that's where Section 32 of the Indian Evidence Act comes in. It allows a statement from a deceased person about how they died to be heard. It's kind of like they're being allowed to speak from beyond the grave.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. The same evidence, Manju's letters, was used to tell 2 totally different stories. The prosecution said, look, the letters describe neglect and unhappiness. That's a clear motive for Sharad to want her gone. But the Supreme Court saw it differently. They said, wait a minute. The very same letters describing her deep misery, couldn't they also point to a state of mind that might lead someone to suicide?
And this really shows you how carefully the court was thinking. Yes, Manju was deeply unhappy. Her letters made that clear. But the court pointed out that she never once wrote that she was afraid for her life. There was no mention of a direct, immediate threat from her husband. And that little bit of ambiguity, it became a huge crack in the prosecution's case.
All this doubt, this ambiguity in her letters, it leads us right to the final legal principle that decided this entire case, the benefit of the doubt. And this case is a masterclass in how that works.
So the court was left staring at 2 competing theories.
Path number 1, murder. The husband did it, and the chain of evidence proves it completely. Path number 2, suicide. Driven by despair, Manju took her own life. And remember, the prosecution's job wasn't just to prove their theory was possible, but to prove the other one was impossible.
The Supreme Court included this incredibly powerful line in its judgment. It basically means that even if you have a really strong gut feeling that someone is guilty, that's not enough. The law demands proof. Cold, hard, legal proof that meets those super high standards we just talked about.
So when the court applied those 5 golden rules, the Panchsheel, they found that the chain of evidence against Sharad Sarda just wasn't complete. It didn't totally exclude the other possibility. The idea that Manju might have committed suicide, as tragic as it was, remained a fair possibility that couldn't be ruled out.
And because that possibility couldn't be eliminated, the benefit of the doubt had to go to the accused. The Supreme Court overturned the conviction. Sharad Sarda was acquitted of the murder of his wife.
So why do we still talk about this case decades later? I mean, what's the big deal? Well, its legacy goes way beyond what happened to one man. It fundamentally reshaped how our courts approach any case built entirely on circumstantial evidence.
This case hammered home a principle that echoes in courtrooms even today. The more serious and terrible the crime, the higher the standard of proof you need to convict someone. It's a crucial safeguard to prevent wrongful convictions, especially when someone's life is on the line. And that leaves us with a huge question, one that gets to the very heart of our justice system. The Sharad Sarda case sets an incredibly high bar for prosecutors. So, does this high standard sometimes let a guilty person walk free? Or is it a non-negotiable price we have to pay to make absolutely sure that an innocent person is never, ever wrongly condemned? It's a debate that's still very much alive.
Thank you everyone for joining the class and प्लीज़ लाइक शेयर सब्सक्राइब माई चैनल। आप लोग सब्सक्राइब नहीं करोगे तो फिर आप लोग को वीडियो नहीं मिलेगा, और आप लाइक करोगे तो मुझे मोटिवेशन मिलेगा। थैंक यू फॉर ज्वाइनिंग वंस अगेन। टाटा, बाय बाय, टेक केयर।